the Shit My Pastor Said, the podcast where we talk about all the shit those pastors have said. My name's Kris.
And I'm Chris's brother, Dano. Hey, Kris, today we're talking about a topical thing in our community. And it's pretty pertinent to the premise of this podcast because some pastors said a lot of shit. And that is Sunday the 18th, about a week ago for us, as time of this recording. There was a church in St. Paul, Minnesota, that is on historically great, rich, beautiful Summit Avenue in St. Paul, where a group of protesters stormed into the service when it was probably, I guess I don't really know, but probably a quarter of the way through, right in the middle of the sermon.
Yeah.
I'd say 20 to 30 people, and just started doing chants of ICE out and say her name for Renee Good. And it was now national news, and a lot of updates since then. Kris, what have you been seeing about that?
I've been seeing, imagine this, that there is people on my social media logarithm that, funny, are all very conservative evangelicals who are crying out, victim, victim, I can't believe they did this. And then everyone else is saying, yep, that's what peaceful protests are supposed to do, disrupt, to bring voice and change to things that we might be ignoring or ignorant of.
Yeah, and it's I don't know. I think it's an interesting story because it brings, in my opinion, some legitimate, things to the surface of what I think about this kind of church. It brings, as a parent or as someone that just is watching over little kids or vulnerable people or whatever. Like, it brings up a lot of emotions for a lot of different people. So it's been an interesting thing. I actually knew somebody that was a part of it. I saw him on the video.
Good. Yeah.
There's a 40-minute video of the whole thing. I think it's from the perspective of a protester.
It is.
First of all, I just got to say right off the bat, I am fueled by controversy and tension. I'm an 8 on the Enneagram. I fucking love when this stuff happens, especially when it's a church, because I'm a former pastor. I know the ins and outs of running a service, of logistics, of all that. But anyways, on the video, I noticed an old acquaintance of mine. I haven't talked to him in a long, long time. But just to give us a little taste of the context,
of who
he was the guy
with.
that one time, one of us that was in just this group of guys said like shit. And this guy said, language. And I think I said, what the fuck did you just say to me?
And we all know,
Anyways.
We all have someone like that from our former past. Yes.
Yeah. So Kris, what are some initial things as a pastor or just, watching the video? What are some initial things that rose up for you?
Well, how about this? I'll start at a place of, before I get to the pastor aspect of, I saw it and
Sure.
my first initial feeling was, oh shit, what did they just do? How is this going to complicate things for me? Right? It's honest where I started. Of people walking to a church, it's like, oh, this is uncomfortable. This is different. I have not seen this before, right? And these are the first people that ever protested in a church. But I felt really uncomfortable. It took me back to, I don't remember the year, but when the Black Lives Matter and they were protesting and they ended up stopping traffic, like on interstate and highways, they were stopping traffic. And I had very similar feelings then of like, whoa, these people in the cars, they didn't do it. We don't know if they're complicit. We don't know if they did anything. They just want to get to their jobs. They just want to get to their homes. And I felt that again when I saw them walk in the church. I'm like, oh man, I am pro-protest, First Amendment, all that. My initial reaction was like, well, man, these people in these church, they didn't sign up for this. And it just really,
Right.
it just exposes my whiteness, right? Of I want status quo. And I don't remember who told me. I wish I could go back, but I had a person of color when I was processing these things forever ago about the traffic stops. And they said, do you think that's the point, Kris, that maybe marginalized people also didn't sign up for this? That their
Right.
inconvenience, they just want to get to their jobs. They just want to get to their homes. They just want to enjoy, having a drink in their living room. And so I felt that again. And it was really good of this protest is working. right? It's working,
Yeah.
but it does make me feel uncomfortable. It does bring up some questions. But I'm like 100% in support of marginalized communities and protesters who know what they're doing, who are smart, right? This was not just
Right.
like, hey, we should just go do this. This is calculated.
Well,
Yeah,
we should say real quick, I forgot a key element here.
yeah,
The reason they protested was that a staff pastor at this church
yeah.
is a field officer, a leader of a field. I don't know all the
He's an
logistics,
upper
but
leadership.
he is a member of ICE, and
Yes.
he is in a regional leadership position of ICE in the cities that just killed a woman a couple weeks ago and have been truly terrorizing the whole city metro area. And so I think like that's, in my opinion, that's the central piece. This isn't just a conservative church that we think might agree with ICE, so we're
Yes.
going to go disrupt their service. This church had a staff member who's still to this day on their website as a pastor of this church.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about their reaction in a second, but that's the reason they protested was because, wait a second, you have a pastor on your staff that is also running a team of ICE agents and is an ICE agent himself. That says a lot.
Well, and that's the thing. It's pointed like these
Yeah.
organized protests or sit-ins or
Right.
causing holy trouble, right? It's intentional. It's not random. These people, like the woman who was organizing this, is a lawyer and an activist. She knows her rights, but she also knows what. Like just minutes ago, we just looked up. She just got arrested. So like that's no surprise to her. So
Right.
before I share more, what were your initial thoughts when you watched it?
I think, probably the first thought is probably the same thing you described as like, I don't know if it's Midwest or Minnesotan or whatever, but just like when there's a disruption in a place that normally isn't disrupted, just kind of that like, oh, someone's like, talking at the movie theater or a kid is making a disturbance in class. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
That quickly faded for me when I was like, oh yeah.
but
Like,
it says like almost like we have these unwritten rules that we all follow by, right? Which
yeah.
is again incredibly white. That is a white way of thinking of like we all have these social cues that we're never going to break because it centers our power as white people.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally. It's like hearing your buddy talk back to their dad. It's like, oh shit.
I'd say it's a little different, but I'd say
Hey man,
you could have
you don't know my buddies growing up. You didn't run with these guys like I did. Or rather, you didn't know these dads. I think like I said, obviously this stuff is on the surface. It's every waking moment is that yesterday we recorded an episode and I ran out the door because I heard whistles outside.
yeah.
Like it's there. And so I saw the video, I heard like rumblings on social media this. And then when I like read up on the story and then got the full context, just like, I mean, right off the bat, from the standpoint of Christianity, to be a part of ICE is just it's wild to me. That's a
Yeah.
wild story, protest or not. The fact that you have a pastor that is a part of this operation in the city that this is all happening, and you're just silent and just getting away with it. So for that reason, I mean, I'm fully on board with this. But yeah, like that alone is like, yeah, they need to be disrupted. This is batshit crazy. Like how they could even on their terms defend this. And they haven't. They've defended a lot of other bullshit, but yeah. So
So
my initial reaction was just like, oh hell yeah, this needs to be just disrupted. I think a big reason that I think this is such a big deal is because a pastor that's supposedly supposed to be welcoming people into a safe space that they have been shouting from the mountaintop since this happened. Like, this is supposed to be a safe place to worship God and to worship Jesus, can also be someone that is literally hunting people down to get them out of our country, away from our churches,
yeah.
away from our communities, like labeling them as trash and filth and rapists and murderers. And just yesterday, a 5-year-old boy is all over the internet as like someone that just got deported
to,
away from Minnesota,
to Texas. Yeah.
yeah, to Texas. So I don't know. I think it's a huge conflict of interest on their terms,
Well, even
and
like,
we'll talk about their terms in a second. But
but even like we were sharing earlier of what if you're a pastor and you say, hey, we exist for the people who are not yet a part of our church, right? That's what most churches say. Of like, we're not a country club for Christians, we're for the community. So if the community, there is undocumented people in your community, would those people be welcome in the church? If your
right,
pastor is a field officer or a regional officer for ICE, their obligation, their paycheck, their insurance, their retirement, their ego, their power is structured around all are welcome because some people are more human than others. And we're going to
yeah,
terrorize and cause violence on those. So you're even virtue signaling to your church of white people are welcome. Other people,
yeah.
the gospel's for you can get saved, but you're not going to have a spot.
And this is something we talked about a lot. Is like what, which profession is going to win out? You know what I mean?
No, I
If
don't know.
when are you a pastor and when are you an ICE
Oh,
agent?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Or when are you when are you a soldier fighting in some war and when are you a pastor? Or when are
Yeah.
you a member of a motorcycle gang and when are you a pastor? I think
Yeah.
um
When are you an unemployed comedian or a pastor, right?
hey, careful. um but again, this wasn't just a volunteer leader. This was a fucking pastor.
Yeah.
I just cannot emphasize that enough, how insane that feels to me.
So it again, like when people are organizing any kind of, I shouldn't say always, but this was a very intentional, targeted, premeditated, thought through protest, which is no different than in the Gospels what Jesus did. It's like it's the only time where Jesus premeditated, I'm going to go and cause some holy trouble. Like
Yeah.
even creating like the whip that he used, it was all premeditated of this is not okay. It wasn't just like, hey, this is what we should do. And I think that's where people just feel like it's like an angry mob that's just like, we just want to go piss some people off. That is not at all. It's meant to send a wider message. Can you see us? Can you feel for a little bit? Even the people are saying, J.D. Vance was saying, like they terrorize kids, they scared kids. It's like, yeah, what about the families that have been stuck in their apartments for weeks that people have to deliver groceries? Their kids aren't going to school. Like
Yeah.
my kids have a lot of concern about going to school in northern Minnesota, where ICE, we don't see it like what's happening where your kids go to school, and they're still fucking terrified. So like
Dude,
being
I
uncomfortable
was
for
just
a
gonna
little bit
right.
I do feel for the kids that were there, but now you have to have a conversation that you've been probably shielding your kids from, like
Right.
black people exist, brown people exist, right? Undocumented
Yeah.
people exist, and when we can just live in this world of like just trust the government, they'll get rid of the quote unquote bad people. It's like if we believe that to be true, who benefits by labeling them as bad? It,
Right. Yeah, I'm a substitute teacher and going
humble
out of
brag.
like 2 or 3 different school districts. Yeah. Um and like teachers I talk to, like, oh yeah, I'm missing, you know, we're missing 6 families in fourth
Yeah.
grade for the last 2 weeks or whatever. It's just like so crazy. Um yeah, I haven't told you this, but you know what their sermon was on?
No,
Well,
I
the
didn't hear
sermon he
this.
was preaching.
No.
Uh, it's a good one. It's the golden rule: do unto others
Oh,
what you would have done unto you.
are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh my
When I
God.
looked that up, I was like, oh, thank God, John 13, baby.
I could have sworn it would have been something like women can't talk in church is what I thought it would be. Yeah.
Yeah, who controls the checkbook? Um,
That was another viral video that came
um,
out recently.
yeah. So interesting. You mentioned the response. The video is good because it's obviously instant response from
Yeah.
people in this church service, like the videographer or whatever, is asking people, "Do you support ICE?" I was surprised in the video how many people said like, "I actually like am on your guys' side, but you shouldn't be disrupting a
Yep.
service, and I'm actually sympathetic to what's going on, but like now's not the place," and blah 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 blah. One of the pastors was asked, staff pastor, who was clearly like flummoxed or like in over his head with what was happening, and no one was telling him like what to do, was asked like, or no, he said like, you shouldn't have disrupted a worship service, and the guy doing the video thing said like, well, Jesus disrupted worship services, like you said, like Jesus disrupted like the temple, like
Yeah.
the ultimate worship service. And there's a lot of back and forth on Facebook, which is always edifying, of like, well, that wasn't a worship service, but I'm pretty sure it was
Makes me
pretty
real proud
lifelike.
to be a
And
pastor
like
and a
you said,
Christian. Yeah.
like to your point of the discomfort, ICE agents in Minneapolis have been circling churches where
Yes.
a lot of our majority Hispanic people, circling them just to intimidate them, waiting for them to go back out to their cars. Like,
Mm-hmm.
since when it's suddenly convenient that worship services are off limits when it comes to you?
Yeah. Well, and again,
Yeah,
even to go back to your point of the people on the video saying, "I'm actually in support of you," that's every white response when the power dynamic has suddenly shifted. White people
right,
will retreat back to the center because we don't like being uncomfortable and we don't want to not have power. So
right.
it's like anything to get back to law and order. White people love law and order because it benefits them through and through always. So when that power is shifted, the dynamic is shifted, they all of a sudden play victims, right?
Right.
It is what we do all the time. And one of my favorite parts of the video is I think it was the staff pastor. I don't know if it was. I think it was the person who said the language thing to you, and he's like
Yeah.
just trying to like go over the top of like, yeah, guys, I understand. It's like, no, you don't understand.
Yeah.
But we're just trying to worship Jesus. They're like,
Yeah. That's a strong, like, I want to get out of this conversation.
and I imagine a response could be like, yeah, so do we, right? Like,
Yeah.
of course, this is how we're worshiping Jesus, by asking, do you see us? We exist. You don't see the
Yeah.
problems, or you see the problems, but they're always nameless, faceless people. We're here saying, time to do something. ICE has got to
Yeah.
go. God.
So I was pretty surprised at their response, and I'll tell you why. Their response
Who's
was
there?
they
The,
did
the church's
two,
response?
the churches. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. The church's response. They did two like short statements on their website and on Facebook. The first one was just like, our values are here to worship Jesus, and you shouldn't disrupt us, and we're going to go after you with every legal force. I was surprised by that, actually, because here's why. If that guy wasn't an ICE agent, that could be the first thing you say. Like, hey, I know that it's been said that our pastor is an ICE
Oh,
agent. It's not true. He's not. You could have said that. So
yeah.
to me, that says this guy's absolutely an ICE agent. And like, it's going around, he's on CNN as an ICE agent. You could have said, we didn't know about this, or we're going to talk to him, or here's our path forward on how to listen to if it's appropriate for an ICE agent to be a pastor. You could have had 10 different off ramps to be like, let's further the dialogue that we claim we wanted to have in
Yeah.
those videos, and blah, blah, blah. Instead, they just doubled down and said, this was unjust. We are victims here. This should never have happened. This is an affront to God and to our rights to worship Jesus freely.
Yeah.
I was pretty surprised by that. And just like from a PR perspective, there's so many ways you could have handled this to make yourself look better, and they just didn't.
But again, I would say that they're responding in the way that they were trained to respond, because by
Yeah,
playing victim, I imagine they have a GoFundMe, or they don't need a GoFundMe because they're a nonprofit with online giving. I imagine. I bet they've made hundreds of thousands of dollars, Dano, in the past week. Guarantee that they have, because
jeez.
conservative people, when they find a way to be a victim, they associate with it immediately, right? Like, we got to save them, we got to help them. Like who's the dipshit that carried the long rifle to Wisconsin? Kyle
Yeah, Kyle Rittenhouse,
Rittenhouse,
whatever.
right?
Yeah,
That guy made millions of dollars off murdering people. and still was the victim somehow, right? So their response doesn't. Yes, it's an admission that he's an ICE officer, but it is a hell of a way to retain even more power.
Totally.
It's
Yeah, the other one was how to talk to your kids about it. I will say, like you said, like I have no doubt that, even if I thought I was right, if that happened where I was at with my kids, I'd bet you they'd be scared. And
well,
I don't like the thought of my kids being scared.
no, but
But I'm not saying that it's justified. I just mean like I can empathize with like you do need to talk to your kids about what happened. The way that they
yeah,
chose to do it, I fully disagree with. Because what they chose to do it with was to say, here's a bunch of Bible scriptures about how we should rejoice when we're persecuted
yeah,
and how God will put us through fiery trials. And this is one such trial. And we need to hold our faith in God because we are now under attack because we're Christians. Like that to me is batshit craziness, or not
yes.
craziness. That is batshit shithousery,
I like that better. But it's like the people. Oh God, I had a shirt that said Philippians 4:13. Right, I can do all things in Christ who
which
gives
is
me
what?
strength. I can do all
Oh,
things
yeah.
in Christ who gives
Cool.
me strength, and the guy was like lifting up like weights, and it's the
Yeah.
idea of like we use the Bible as a way to get us pumped up or to reinforce our bias, right, or our whiteness or whatever, our patriarchy. We can use the Bible to justify our shitty things. So
Yeah.
to go back to the kids, then I have empathy for kids who feel scared always, right? But now you have an opportunity, right, to have those honest conversations. And if they're going to say, well, the Bible says we're victims, then they're already doubling down what they were already preaching to their kids, right? And it's not the
Right.
kids.
Yeah.
It's not. I'm not blaming the kids, but at some point, for a wider conversation, how many more conversations are parents having to have with their kids because of this video? Right? And
Right.
that's good. In the same way, I have to. It sucks. I have to have conversations with my kids of like, hey, there was a shooting that happened in Minneapolis, whatever, last summer, right? I have to talk with my kids who come home, and they're visibly afraid because like if it can happen there, it can happen here. It's only 2 hours away. That fucking sucks. But we have to
Talking
have these
about it.
conversations so don't we just keep perpetuating the same toxic systems, or if we're in church world, the same toxic theology that just perpetuates these problems over and over again. Now, let me be very clear. I am not like for, hey, we should do these things to cause kids to be scared so we can have wider lessons.
Right.
I'm not pro that. I'm saying it sucks. I have empathy. It sucks. But I'm going to listen and trust when marginalized people are organizing to make a bigger conversation. Because if not now, when? Because
Right.
we will just keep punting the ball down. We'll just keep moving the field goal posts of saying how I wrote this earlier, but like how long have white pastors and white churches been preaching unity? We just have to come together. We just need to pray. We just need to have another committee. We should do a field research. We should do a survey.
Right.
The kingdom of God's coming. It's a broken world, already and not yet. That same language is just a way of saying we don't want to do anything about it. We just want to have words that sound like it. We want the benefit
Right.
of having all the power and taking all your money, but we don't want to do anything about doing any kind of a meaningful change. And at
Yeah.
some point, for whatever reason, you have to make a decision.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think one of the big differences too is like, I'd love to hear just like how you would respond to this because I think there's a part of me that thinks there's a wave about to happen in the next weekend or few weeks of people disrupting church services on both
Yes.
sides of
Yeah.
them. And I think like, I'm reminded of like protesters disrupting like I forget what they're called, like trans story time where
Mm-hmm.
people volunteer to read to kids in libraries where families choose to go to that.
Yeah.
And so the protesters are disrupting this happening, but it's only like the people that are there want to be there. And
Yes.
so the protesters are saying, we don't want anybody to hear this. The difference between that and this is you're doing something to us out in the community.
Exactly.
And we're going to disrupt your space now.
But people, it sure seems like online that people can't see that.
No.
Again, they're just saying you went to a church just to piss people off, and they just play victim again. They miss the higher conversation. So to go to a wave of churches being disrupted, I have a couple thoughts. First one is, this is what did I say earlier? It's like having a toxic marriage of like some dipshit husband, of where the wife spent $30 extra on the groceries or whatever, right? I'm using broad stereotypes. And the husband gets pissed, so then he goes out and spends $1,000 on new golf clubs and saying, see, how does it feel, right? Of where they
Right.
respond to something as a victim, even though they have always had the power and the control, but they want to teach a lesson by going so far beyond to scare, intimidate. It's just like what we're going to see is backlash, right? White backlash,
Right.
white fear. And so, like, I text you right after this of the denomination or the church I worked at had a security team that carried weapons. The pastors carried handguns on them while they were preaching, like in their back pocket. It was holstered, right? And I texted you and said, "Oh God, security teams at churches are having wet dreams all week."
Yeah.
Of like, it's our time to ride or die, boys.
It's like,
Right?
rise up.
Yeah, I dare you.
I got in an argument with that pastor, one of whom you're describing. And my question was like, so you're preaching and you see something happening. You're going to take your gun out. You have stage lights on you and you're going to fire into your crowd. And you think you're such a good shot
Yeah.
that you're going to hit the exact problem and everybody else is going to be safe. It's
You're
like,
firing
okay.
into a crowd full of people.
Into the dark. Yeah.
Yeah. And Dano, like,
Wild.
we know this person, right? I'm convinced that, well, I don't want to say convinced. I would not be surprised, right, that this weekend something like that is going to happen. I don't know about, hopefully not a shooting, but I bet there's, if I feel on edge, and I do, I'd be lying if I didn't have some anxiety about what could happen on a Sunday service with us. So if I feel that, right, I imagine evangelical churches feel it significantly more, which is, I'm fine with.
But again, I'm not even, well, it's the fact that he was a pastor. It wasn't just, I know that this is a liberal church, so I'm going to go after them. Or I know that this is a conservative mega church, so I'm just going to disrupt it because I assume they agree with this. It's that he had an active role in that is just so wild. But
I don't think people are going to see that, Dano. I agree
I think
with
you're
you.
right, which makes me afraid, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm with you. So I think people, again, can respond out of ignorance of saying, "Well, you did this to us, now we have to do it back," and it's missing the point. It's like it's people saying, "Well, we need to have heterosexual month, right? Heterosexual pride or whiteness day, or what about male month?"
Or like, all lives matter.
It's the same damn thing of like, well, you can't have the attention. We need the spotlight all the way back on us.
Right.
So let me share with you, and I'm not saying this is what we do, but in my head, if someone came, like I had someone, our old neighbor, I don't know if they listen to this or not, he messaged me saying, "So are you totally cool with people disrupting worship services to protest? I'm asking for a friend." I'm like, "Oh yeah." Well, that's I don't know if you're being funny or if it's a threat. I took it as a slight threat. And I responded like, "Yeah, if my church is intentionally bringing harm to marginalized people, you should 1,000% come protest." Right?
Right.
And if people walked into our church and started yelling and doing things, I would just tell the church, "Don't touch anyone. Don't say anything. Just church is done." Like, I'm not going to put up
I would say to that neighbor too, maybe get a less mean dog when we were kids.
Oh my God, I forgot.
That's what I'd say. King.
that's that's a great like hidden message in this podcast. Yes.
Yeah.
Um.
King was mean.
God.
Let me ask you this: like
Yeah.
the discourse I see online, and from people even talk to me. I think you touched on it earlier, but like, well, this is like we need to follow the laws, and this
Mm-hmm.
is so wrapped up somehow in Christianity. And
Yes.
apparently, there's passages left and right. They say of like you need to respect the government and to respect the laws that God put those laws in place because He put the governments in place there,
Yes.
which I think like sounds like a good argument on that side, and it would make you feel like justified.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like it's one of those things in the Bible narrative of like, well, this so easily falls apart at some point.
A
And
thousand
like
percent.
where do people's lines are? Because to me, it's like, well, yeah, this is totally justified.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, when does it get to like slave hunters or Confederate churches or you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Like,
Revolutionary War.
yeah, I think yeah, yeah, yeah. But you know, like if a church pastor was also like hunting down escaped slaves, you know, I could like, yeah, you should disrupt the shit out of that service back in the 1800s. But
Well, it then Pam Bondi would have prosecuted Anne Frank,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Or the people hiding Anne Frank. So like of Romans, I believe it's 14 or maybe it's Romans 12. In Romans, the whole idea of like God put up the government structures in place and we need to follow them. Well, you can go back
it's
to
wild.
you can go back to Jesus and say, "Give unto Caesar what is Caesar, and give unto God what is God's." Right? That's one way of thinking about it. Like we live in a world where we have laws. Maybe we should follow them, but we're going to be Jesus-looking people or kingdom people, whatever the fuck you want to call it. But
But like that falls apart if like even now, I'm sure John Piper would say like, well, that doesn't apply if you're like a North Korean or like
exactly. So
a
this,
Iranian revolution. Like you don't know, you don't follow fucking Hezbollah. That's not something that God put in place, according to them. I'm sure, right?
yeah. So then, the the question I just used it that I learned when I was in seminary from an activist is, and it comes out of liberation theology. If we believe this to be true, who benefits the most? So if you're like Franklin Graham Jr. said, don't resist arrest, just follow the laws and you'll be okay, right? And like my favorite comment on that, someone said, okay, thanks, rapist. Thank
Yeah,
rapey language,
Yahoo.
right? And it's true. So
Yeah,
if we believe that we need to listen to the government laws no matter what blindly because that's what God's asking us to do and that's to be a good Christian is to blindly follow the government, then who benefits the most from that? Well, it's not just the government, it's white Christian nationalists.
right.
And so when they are advocating that women shouldn't be able to vote, right? If that administration said, well, now that's what we're going to do, then you could look at every single Christian church and every woman and saying, I'm sorry, you can't resist, you can't fight back because God ordained this government to suppress your vote so that white men can continue to have all the power. The argument works only when it benefits you, and that's
Yeah,
so it's bullshit. All right, it's absolute bullshit because Christianity is grounded in resistance. Right, even the whole like of the Hebrew people moving in exile. Right, that is a part of the violence and history and pain and grief that they have sung songs about. That Psalms are about. Like a big
right,
reason of the Bible, the Hebrew Bible exists, is leaving all the horrible, violent, shitty things done to them and they did to other people as a way of telling them, don't repeat our fucking mistakes. Don't let this happen again.
right.
So like that was out of war and pain, but it's also out of resistance. So I when people use the Bible to reinforce patriarchy and whiteness, it's honestly, and I imagine you feel the same way. It's times like this where I'm like, can we be done with the title of Christianity? Because as soon as I say
Yeah,
I'm a pastor, and people are like, oh, I know who you are, and I feel like I have to do more job convincing people as a middle-aged white pastor of saying, no, I'm part of a wildly progressive church. So it's bullshit.
yeah.
The short answer to it is using the Bible for this is bullshit. And the fact that the
Well,
pastor was
unfortunately,
using the
like
golden rule. That's
Dude, it's
rich.
so funny. The sermon is called "Love One Another" or something like that. It's like, wow. And he was the first one screaming "Shame on you" to the protesters coming in, saying, "Justice for Renee."
So, what about this, Dano? Is there? Well, I don't even. I'll share what I'm thinking, and I was going to try posing as a
Sure.
question just so I could talk. Um, when I thought about this of disrupting a church for a protest for, if you want to say a valid reason or not, right? If someone in the church that I worked at, which was Duluth Vineyard, where the pastors covered up the sexual assault of their son, who's now in prison. And if you're listening to podcasts, we avoid using names and these names, especially for a lot of reasons, but this is appropriate, I think. As a staff pastor, if a group of people would have come in, there was a mom who reported it to Brenda Gatlin and said, "Your son was doing this to my daughter," and Brenda dismissed it. It was a mandatory reporter, didn't do anything with it, and buried the phone call and didn't tell anyone. If that mom with a group of other people would have came in the middle of the worship service and started protesting, I, as a staff pastor, would have backed the Gatlins at that time. I wish I wouldn't have, but I probably would have. But what it would have done, it would have started people in that church, including myself, saying, "What did you say? They did what? You called?" And then we would have a lot more conversations about what's
Right.
happening to get down to it, because you don't there can't be change until the power is disrupted, until the truth, at least in an uncomfortable way, can come out. And so, like, maybe there should have been more protests in churches,
Yeah.
because how many churches are causing, like, there was just another vineyard pastor out in California just got fired for recording women going in and out of Trader Joe's, and the church hid it for 5 years. So, like,
That is so wild.
again, how do we disrupt power in the white evangelical church? Because it's not working so great, because they just circle the
Yeah.
wagons. And what are your
Yeah.
thoughts?
And like in that video, this pastor that's on there, this maybe he's bad, but kept saying, like, I just wish you guys would have had some dialogue with us
Yeah,
first. And then I think it was the attorney said, like, we tried to call you guys this whole week and no one would talk to us.
yeah,
Like,
and
oh, okay.
and even historically, beyond a phone call, of like, are you not aware of what's happening in Minneapolis? Do you
Yeah,
not see
exactly.
Do you not see what's been happening for generations in white church? It's yeah,
Well, it's a choice, man. You want to talk about white. I mean, they moved into Summit Avenue, which is lined with the richest, biggest mansions in St. Paul. You know, it's like, it's
and mu-
beautiful.
and they muscled out the nonprofit, the music school, out of
Yeah.
their part of the lease, and then they tried fundraising through the community of people not even in their church to fix the steeple, and saying, well, this is going to benefit the whole neighborhood. Like, yeah, it's just it is power trying to reinforce power. Like, we discussed this earlier too, of like, one conversation we had in seminary was, the only power pastors have is the power that the congregants give to that pastor. And so they'll
Sure.
do whatever they can. That's why when we say, oh, the big donors, the big givers, and you're dancing around them, because you want to retain that power, not just your salary. You want to retain the ego of a pastor is a bitch, right? And I've been there
Yeah.
before. And so this pastor is going to do whatever he can of using the Bible and what about the kids and all these things, because it's a way to retain even more power from the church. And the mental gymnastics people in a church, and ignorantly or intentionally, doesn't matter, right? We're beyond that now, of choosing the side of the pastor or the side of the abuser or the side of the patriarchy, and to throw up their hands like, well, we didn't know. It's like, you don't have that excuse anymore. Like,
No.
ignorance is not an excuse when it's happening, especially in your neighborhoods and in your church with a pastor who's an ICE officer. It's, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think, yeah, I think, I hope the guy gets, I don't know. I'm about to say something mean, so I won't say
Yeah,
anything.
no, we don't. I don't say anything. I don't think anything is going to happen with this church if that's where you're going. I
Well,
think
that's
they.
what I was gonna say. It's just like I so firmly disagree with this style of church. It's like this might mean something to some people, but like a John Piper family church,
Yep.
and just like their weaponization of the Bible is something that like they 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 speak as if like they have the corner on all things scripture. Like
Yes.
we are the ones that hold the truest to the Bible. And so that's a convenient way of just being able to use the Bible to do truly whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah,
Because the
but
Bible is a weird document that you can pick and choose, and the narrative, and you can say whatever you want. It'll back you up. And if you have the corner on authority over from scripture rather, it's like game over for everybody else, which is so it sounds and feels good to your people, I'm sure, but it sure looks like hypocrisy and bullshit to the rest of us.
when you put yourself at the center of the gospel, you could say it's Jesus, but most Christians when they read, I got it. This is a broad statement again. A lot of people who read the New Testament put themselves like as the disciples. They put themselves
Right.
even as the role. They always put themselves as the savior, the hero of the story. Rarely do we ever put ourselves as Americans as the Sadducees or the people that were quote unquote they say those are the bad guys. It's like we are
Right.
absolutely the empire. We are Rome 100% in the
Right.
story in the
I know.
Gospels. But when churches
Who do you
play just
oh, go ahead.
just when churches put themselves in the center of the story, they can use the Bible any way they want to reinforce their power because
Right.
the
Yeah,
Bible doesn't say it, but it gives enough language to make you feel like it does.
totally. Which character in the New Testament do you put yourself as?
Who do I
I'm
put it
going,
as?
I'm going, I'm going Barabbas. I'm coming out. Fuck you.
I always
We're
like the
partying tonight.
I always like
We're
the
going out.
story
We're going
of
out tonight.
gonna get lit. Um, the gardener in the resurrection story of where Mary looks at him and says, "Hey, where'd you put the fucking body?" And the gardener, or
Yeah.
Jesus is the gardener, but she just thinks he's a gardener. I always cracks me up. If you're really a gardener, like, oh, I didn't touch Jesus. What do you want? So my favorite character is not a character apparently, but
Yeah.
so Dano, to wrap things up, where do like as even just the purpose of this podcast is go through like spiritual trauma and the bullshitness of what was handed to us. How do we move forward of like this is not an easy issue. This is not a black and white issue.
Right.
This is nuance. I think multiple things can exist at the same time of like we should have empathy and compassion for the people who were scared and the kids that were scared. And there needs to be justice and accountability for these toxic systems. So with that
Yeah.
being said, like how do we move forward?
Yeah. I don't think this will happen, but what I wish would happen is that this would. I don't give a shit about this church, um, but I wish like my hope would be that this would shake like why is it presumed okay for an ICE officer to be on staff at this church? Like shouldn't like I hope people will question like why is that just a free pat? Like wait, maybe that is messed up. Is that messed up? Are they telling me it's okay, or was it just kind of skated by? Like I want like to your point, I want those conversations to be percolating in that congregation and to all of us of just like what am I giving a free pass to? What do I
Yes.
need to question of like, whoa, 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 am I comfortable? If I found out like an assistant principal at my kid's school is also an ICE agent, like what would
Mm-hmm.
I do? And I want those things to be shook. Um, a way forward for the rest of us, I think. I don't know, man. I think we should continue to listen and to speak up for sure. Um, I think we should continue to show up for our neighbors,
Yes.
and I think we should continue to like be willing to say, I'm going to go disrupt this. And maybe, like we talked about last week, like I might go to jail for this, but I think I want to prepare myself to get in the way.
Yes.
I haven't had to do that yet, but I want to every day. I've just been, am I preparing myself about, do I got my shit, my affairs in order where I'm going to run out there and go down the block and be an observer to my neighbors getting dragged out of their house. So I don't know what, as far as church, I am scared. I mean, I am, my brother's a pastor. It's
I'm right
scary to
here.
me.
I
I
am that
have, I
brother.
have, I have, dear friends that go to big liberal leaning churches that could be targets. And I don't want some lefty, unstable person that's fired up about stuff to storm into a conservative church and make a
Exactly.
mistake and do something stupid. So, and I don't want a peaceful protester to get shot by a power hungry security team at
Exactly.
Bethlehem Baptist or whatever might happen. So yeah, it's another layer of unease, but I'm
So
glad it happened,
the
and I'm in solidarity or whatever. But
the the to your point, you've said like these conversations need to be having about like why did an ICE officer be a pastor? I would say even wider. The messages I haven't shared this with you yet. I've gotten messages from people in the metro area, and I won't say the church's name, but like prominent mainline, or this one wasn't mainline. This was a non-denominational community church, and truly non-denominational, not like a bullshit way of saying we're Baptist, but we don't want to have the stigma of being
sure,
Baptist. In an incredibly wealthy, it was in Wyzetta, right? Is Wyzetta still like a really wealthy place to live? Yeah, yeah.
yes,
And they sent me the sermon, and I listened to it, and it's this preacher, and she's saying, "Hey, you know what? There's a lot going on in our city. There's a lot of feelings, and we're all wrestling with it. And my job as a pastor is to preach the gospel, so then that you can hear from God of how you're supposed to respond." Right?
my friends were in that service and they just told me about this,
I
and I
imagine
don't know
Dano,
how I feel about it.
I'll tell you how I feel. Right? It is bullshit because
Yeah,
it is the radical middle, like we talked in a previous episode. It's the let's take the middle path of where we don't have to decide, because if we take a side and we get clear, what are we going to lose? And when churches are only focused about how we only win, then that's not the fucking gospel. That
yeah,
is not the person of Jesus. That's not the way of Jesus. That is the way of American white Christian nationalism. We win at all costs. And I don't think churches do it on purpose. I don't think it's like, hey, we have to make sure we never answer. But oh my God, I still remember giving a message, and I don't think it's online anymore. If someone finds it, like I said it, I remember when Black Lives Matter, right when it first came out, I got coached by the pastors of how to respond, and it was, hey, Black lives do matter, but so do brown lives, and so do white lives. And I went through like it was an all lives matter message,
right,
right? Because that's a way of saying we acknowledge that exists, but we're not going to take a stance. Right? That
right,
is what churches are doing because it reinforces their power. So this is forcing not just churches, but is demanding the people in the church are having conversations with each other and hopefully with the boards of those churches, with the staff pastors and the lead pastors and the donors and people in the community. Because one of the things that I'm very vocal about is I think is absolutely inhumane and bullshit is churches that have secret hidden policies and then don't tell
yeah,
anyone until that trans person comes in the church and wants to be a pastor, and they've already donated $30,000 over the last 5 years to that church, and saying, "Oops, you went too far." It is so inhumane. And so what I hope moving forward is, and even in our church as well, the church I lead, we should be having hard conversations about why we do the things we do, but also, and equally important, why don't we do the things we don't do? How come we don't talk about
right.
this? And if you can't, and Pat, like your heart should be on pitter pat, like nervous, because you're going to lose. Anytime you get clear, you're going to lose something. And
Right.
if the point is only to win, like I said, then we're just playing a game where pastors just want to be employed. They just want to have a place where they can say whatever they want. And that's bullshit. I'm done with that kind of Christianity.
Totally. I mean, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be employed, right, folks? Are you with me on that? I'm kidding. I'm a substitute teacher.
I'm an unemployed comedian who does a side hustle of
I'm
substitution.
underemployed. Okay, it's different.
Okay,
Hit
so
me up if you got some work. No, that's really good. I think I'm curious about this whole. I know we're wrapping it up, but like this holier than thou sacred space of a church worship service is such an interesting like. Why are you shaking your head?
I'm agreeing. It's bullshit.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying like, why are we getting into this right now? I'm
No,
gonna
no,
start over then. Okay,
no. Keep this.
edit right here.
Keep going.
Yeah. Anyways, why is the church service and the church building like this holier than thou sacred space of, you know, like you cannot even disrupt it. I remember being at a church service and a person with a disability just got up and started like shouting at the preacher, and it wasn't
Yeah,
anything like violent or it was just like I think it was asking a question like,
I
how
was
can I
there.
get that or something like that.
Hmm.
Yeah. um and you could, like we said at the beginning of this episode, the whole room just tensed up, but like there needed to be somebody to come in and like escort them out.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's been used against like women, unfortunately mothers, like with a crying baby and shit like
Oh
that.
my
Just
god.
like you cannot disrupt this sacred space.
Hmm.
And I think there's a big piece of me that just said like, get that shit out of the way, because we're all in favor of that shit when it's like Mel Gibson the patriot storming into a church saying time to sign up for the revolution, like truly
Is
like
that really
um
part of the movie?
I think so, yeah.
God, the fact that you remember that is amazing. Okay.
But yeah, when I was a pastor, here's what I want churches to be like, yeah, get in here. Like, like come on in. Like let's talk about it. Let's flow. Let's change. You want to talk about dialogue, like they're saying only on my terms.
Exactly.
Only when I'm ready to talk to you, when you come into my office on a Wednesday morning.
Hmm.
Certainly not during a Sunday morning.
Nope.
Like we got to get through this, modern country song worship set. And like I don't know, it's just
So,
I know how we got there, but I sure want to get away from that.
so then to go back to what I said earlier, if we believe that places of worship are sacred, holy spaces that in no terms can ever be disrupted from the status quo or the norm,
Right.
right? And there's a social contract of if you walk in, you can't wear a hat, you have to fold your hands, you have to be respectful. Who benefits the most if we believe that to be true?
Yeah.
Right? It's going to be the pastor. It's going to be those in power. And I do think there is something to be said about having a reverence for whatever people believe to be sacred, right? If I was walking
Yeah.
by and someone said, "Hey, we're having a moment of silence because of we're remembering my grandpa who served in World War II, and so for the next 2 minutes, could you just turn off the weed whacker?" And if I said, "Fuck you, man, I do what I want. This is my right, my freedom," or you could say, "Oh, yeah, of course, man," because there's at
Yeah.
least some understanding and empathy and compassion. So I do think there's a way of saying we can respectfully do it, but then to say that it's out of bounds, to say that it's
Right.
evil to voice a concern that you legitimately believe that needs to be heard, it's
Yeah.
messy, right? It's super fucking messy, and I think that it needs to be because, again, marginalized voices continually get pushed and saying, just come to the table quiet, come to the table like a white person, talk like us, but you'll never win.
Yeah.
You're never going to be heard. Yeah. So one of the reasons that we want to have this conversation is that these are the conversations I'm having, like with my friends. These are the conversations having our church. Like I'm putting out an email to our church of like, how do we respond? So businesses are having to, how are we going to respond if ICE shows up? If
Yeah.
they did stop one of our employees driving one of our service recipients, what are we going to do? Do we have a lawyer retained so that if they get arrested, we can do something as an? You have to have these conversations, and if you're not,
Yeah.
then you're ignorant, is what I'd say.
Yeah. Yeah. Good shit.
Okay, so that's it. We'd love to hear some feedback of how right we are, preferably. If you have some pushback or you got questions or you have stories you want to share, especially one thing, Dana, you brought up was you said how many mothers were forced out of the church because their baby started crying or because they wanted to breastfeed. I've heard dozens of those stories. If you have any of those stories, again, shitmypastorsaid.com. You can email us. You can record your story right on the website. We'd love to hear from you guys. So shitmypastorsaid.com. And next week you're going to be hearing a great. We're going back to like something a little more lighthearted with our buddy Kyle, and it's great.
It's good stuff.
It's good stuff. All right, see you, friends.
All right. See you.